And welcome back, everybody, to Parapalooza Fall 2021. I want to thank everybody for hanging out with us on this glorious Saturday. It's actually pretty nice here, so hasn't been too bad today. We've had a great lineup today, and it's only getting better as we go on. Want to remind you guys, if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe to some of our other shows that RCJ Productions puts on. We got The Truth About Beer and every Tuesday night. And we've got Bios to Books featuring self-published authors, and my dad runs that show. We have Paranormal Partners on every other Sunday, and our new show is Coffee Table Chronicles, which has nothing to do with paranormal. But if you want to get down and dirty with some politics and some maybe uncommon topics, that's a good show to check out. We are not on YouTube most of the time because we would be kicked off, but we are on Rumble. And I have Highway to Your Health, which I need to get back to doing, which all these other shows keep me pretty busy. So yeah, it's been fun trying to do that. Also, if you're into any paranormal equipment, please check out Ghost Hunters Outlet. Of course, we'll have Vinny on tomorrow to talk about kind of walking through the culture of a paranormal investigation. So that's gonna be a lot of fun. So without further ado, our next couple, you know them, you love them. It's Toni and Cherie with Entity Voices. What's up,
Hi,
guys?
Keith.
How you doing, Keith?
I am fabulous. This is so much fun. We enjoy doing this, and especially when we get to have guests like you guys on. I mean, it's just a cool way for the community to come together, like we always talk about, and it's something we started at the start of the pandemic because most of the Paracons around were being canceled, and we were kind of bummed out because we were set to go to one and we never got the opportunity to. So we figured, well, you know what? We're going to bring it to YouTube. And that's
awesome.
Kind of what we started. So anyway, I don't want to take up your time. So I'm going to give the floor to you guys. I'll be here in the background to take some comments. I'll put them up on the screen so you guys can check them out.
Sounds great.
Awesome.
All right, guys. See you in a bit.
All right. Well, I'm Toni Rathman, founder of Entity Voices Paranormal Investigations. This is my wife, Cherie. And we have been paranormal investigating for roughly 11 and a half, coming up on 12.
Oh my gosh, yes, almost 12 years.
Almost 12 years. It'll be 12 February of 2022. So we're a few months away. But wanted an opportunity to talk about some of the things that we've experienced while out investigating, whether that be personal home investigations, whether that be business investigations, or whether that be just historic or haunted locations. But EVPs are where we originally started our focus. And of course, the name Entity Voices came from that. And from there, we reached out into ITC and we built our own box called the E-Box, and it works incredible.
I wish we could show them.
Yeah, you know what? We should have thought about that. We should have thought
Right.
about showing the actual piece of equipment.
Right.
But wanted to talk about how we got started and how EVPs really became the focus of our paranormal investigations. And we got started in EVPs because that was one of the first piece of evidence 11 and a half, 12 years ago that we ever captured, was an EVP of a woman in a downtown Phoenix hotel. And I asked for her name and she gave it to me. Now, let me back up for a second, because when Cherie and I went on that first investigation, Cherie loved the paranormal shows that were out. And she would watch them all the time. And she kept saying to me, "You got to see this. You'll love it." I couldn't stand it 3 minutes.
It took me a while to convince you to watch
It did.
paranormal
It
shows.
did. I didn't believe in what was being shown. I honestly thought it was for television. It was for ratings, and it was entertainment. My background growing up really had nothing to do with the paranormal. My father was a physics, chemistry, physical science guy. And so anytime I asked questions, they were always scientific answers.
Right.
And that's just kind of how I grew up. But then I met Cherie. And on Valentine's Day, Cherie says to me, "I want to do something different." Because normally we'd go hang out at the Buttes Hotel, hang by the pool, drink, have a
It's
nice.
fun, but you know, kind of like boring now when sitting in the pool drinking whatever.
Well, okay, I miss it, but okay.
You do.
Yeah, at times. But anyway, she said, I want to go paranormal investigating. And I was like, you got to be kidding me. But I had two choices. I could appease her and take her, or I could have her mad at me until next Valentine's Day. Didn't really want that. So I took her. I went online. I searched around what's in the area, what's haunted, found a hotel, booked it, thought, okay, I'm done. Well, then I did a little more research and realized they were using equipment, and she probably needs some of that to investigate. So I went out and bought digital camera, EMF meter, and digital recorder, night vision camera and digital recorder.
Right.
So okay, now I'm done. And I didn't spend a lot on these items because I figured,
I know, it's so freaking cheap.
Well, I figured they would collect dust in the back of the closet for the next 5 years till we threw them away. But
But it works.
It did work. It did work. So we get through the investigation, and Cherie starts reviewing evidence. I didn't expect anything to be on, but she started going through the recordings first. But we had photographs, we had videotape, we had a bunch of other stuff. And there was a section where I asked, can you tell me your name? And this woman replied and said, Candy.
Mm-hmm.
And, that's kind of what started. I'm like, there's got to be a reasonable, logical explanation for this. Was it somebody in a different room? But I think we were only one of 3 guests in the entire hotel. Mm-hmm. There was no one else even on our floor. And we had basically gone up and down every floor. We were in the basement, the ghost lounge. We were all over.
Right.
But anyway, so that it kind of struck me strange. I'm thinking there's got to be a logical explanation. So she started going through the rest of it. She started going through the photographs. She started going through the video captures.
And this is how it starts. Believing.
Well, I didn't believe yet, but she started pointing out things in photographs that were not there when we took them. Things in video which looked like people moving that I couldn't explain. Yeah. And so I got so frustrated trying to explain it that we went back.
Because there's just you and I on that area.
Right.
And I capture some, I don't know whether you call that apparition.
Yeah.
But it's very interesting.
Yeah. So I said, okay, if I can't explain this, let's go back and let's try it again. And let's see. I'm going to keep my eyes and ears out for logical explanations. So we went back, we did it again. And then we did it again and again.
50 times.
We investigated that place over 50 times in our career. Mm-hmm. And could never explain it. And so this place definitely has a paranormal activity. But what I found so fascinating about EVPs is that when you ask a question and your circumstances, your environment, who's around, you know who's not around, and you ask a question and this response comes back, answering your question with both timing and relevance. How does that happen? Mm-hmm. Well, everybody in the paranormal, of course, is trying to explain that. We'll get into consciousness because I really think that is the be-all, end-all of intelligent hauntings. Not so much with residual as that's just stored energy, but in intelligent haunting, consciousness has to survive death in order for the phenomena of even receiving an EVP is possible. So we asked a bunch of more EVP questions, and every time we went back, we got more and more answers. Yeah. In fact, we could call out for Candy, not only via EVP, but when we got into spirit boxes, she would come through. I'd be like, Candy, are you there? Yes. Hello. Come through clear as can be, her same voice every time. But the fascinating thing about EVPs to us was that regardless of the answer that they gave, there was a wealth of information in the EVP before you even heard what they said. You knew whether it was male or female. You
Or a
knew
child.
whether it was an adult or a child, correct. You could tell what language they were speaking, if it was English or any other language for that matter. That was identifiable. You could tell tone of voice, whether they sounded happy. Their emotional state would come through, whether they were happy-go-lucky, whether they were fearful, panicked. All of this information unfolded in their verbal sentence before you even heard what they said. Their emotional state came through, their age, whether they're male or female. It was incredible to us. And then you'd get to what they actually said. And to me, that was just amazing because my voice was not being broadcast out. I was speaking in a normal tone of voice in an empty room with no one else except Cherie and I.
Right.
And yet the recorder would pick up an answer.
Yeah.
An answer that was both relevant to timing. It would come through right after the question asked and was relevant to what I asked. And that happened over and over and over. So that's kind of what, after I don't know how many months of starting to investigate, that's kind of how we got hooked. And the fact that you could ask a question, and people always ask us, if I want to get EVPs, where's the best place for me to go and get EVPs? Well, I can tell you, you can get them just about anywhere. We've gotten them in a car with just Cherie and I, no radio on, no nothing, silent, going 75 miles an hour. We've gotten EVPs. Did we try one on a plane? I can't remember. I thought we did fly into the Philippines. I thought I ran it. I can't remember.
I can't remember.
But people are always like, so I have to go to a cemetery. Does it have to be a haunted building?
Nope.
No. If you're interested in EVPs and you want to find out what can be done, get an EVP recorder and test it.
Yeah.
And ask some questions, wait 15, 20 seconds in between, then ask another question. Keep it relatively short, 5, 6, 7 minutes, and then play it back.
Can they do that in their own homes?
They can, based on their comfort level. Some people absolutely say, I'm not doing it in my own home. I don't want them there. There is some relevance to that. We do it in our home all the time, including running.
Because I know I do.
We do all the time, including running spirit boxes. And spirits will show up on the night that we usually do it, and we expect that. But if you're not comfortable with that, maybe don't start out by doing it in your home. But the cool part about it is that, some of the answers we've gotten over the years have just been amazing. I mean, everything from them saying our name, and that started probably 3-4 years into investigating. We would go to locations we had never even been to before. And they would say, oh, the Rathmans or Toni Rathman or Cherie Rathman.
Right.
Call us by name. And we had never stepped foot in there before. So the fact that it is intelligence, which will bring us to the conversation about consciousness, is clearly shown. And from there, we moved from EVPs into spirit boxes. Started out with the typical SP7 like everybody else does. And they work, no doubt about it. They work, but they're hard to hear. The static noise that's in there. And there are people in the paranormal who say, well, you need that static. Without it, you won't get answers. Well, we've proven that you can without the static. And we've built a box that has no static to it at all. In fact, it's completely silent unless they speak. And we actually... I'm getting off topic here. But anyway, the spirit box was a huge increase in our knowledge of intellectual conversation. And although it's still limited to a degree, but a much larger degree, EVP session will last a couple of minutes and then they seem to just disappear. The spirit box session can last much, much longer. So it was real interesting. Plus the other advantage to it. Yeah.
Oh, I thought you want some.
Oh, I have drink.
Cheers.
I'm good.
Cheers,
But the
guys.
thing about the spirit box was that the answer would come through immediately. So hold on one second. We're doubling time. Yeah, that's a great question. There was a time at an investigation that they were on EVP. They were calling out my name, Toni Rathman. I mean, I couldn't not hear it. And anybody who listens to it says, "Oh my God, they just said your first and last name."
Mm-hmm.
That started it. When I could then hear them speak with my own ears, so not an EVP anymore, but a direct voice response where you could hear it with your own ear. That was literally the tipping point for me to say, this isn't fake. This is as real as it gets. And then, of course, from there, everything just expanded to shadow figures, seeing apparitions. Although we had an apparition the very first or second time that we investigated. Mm-hmm. But we've seen a lot since then. And yeah, there is no doubt in my mind that what we're speaking of and referring to is as legit as it gets. Now, if you go to the internet, you're going to see all sorts of stuff. And, you know, there's no guarantees what you're watching is either A, legit, good evidence, or even factual. I still today see people posting dust across the lens.
Right. Sometimes it's hard to tell whether if it's legit capture evidence or whatever, because we saw one that we thought we thought
it was legit. Turned out the gentleman faked it. It was for a marketing campaign.
Right.
But
so how can we tell?
He faked it well. There's a bunch of things to look at. It helps to have a history of what occurs normally within the paranormal. But that's no be all or end all, because nobody knows what can occur. Right. But there are similarities that happen. I don't care what location you're at, of how they react, the types of things they'll do and not do. So when you see something that pushes those boundaries, that's when questions in my mind definitely go up. But back to the consciousness aspect. When I finally determined that this is not a hoax, that this stuff actually happens, that's when we started to really dive into it and try to figure out what answers we could get. Yeah. And unfortunately, in almost 12 years, we've gotten probably for every answer 100 more questions. So it never ends. But the thing about the paranormal that keeps you going back is because you never know what you're going to run into. Right. And you never know how they're going to react. I mean, it's no different than if you went up to a complete stranger on the street and just asked a random question. They may look at you and answer. They may be like, "Get away from me. What a stupid question." So personalities, which are on the other side, are no different than personalities here on Earth. Mm-hmm. They just don't have a physical body anymore. And it's that consciousness, that free will, that ability to decide what you want to do and not do, that all transfers over, at least from our experience, from what we've captured over the years. And that's really interesting, because consciousness then, and I don't care what words you use, whether you use entity, spirit, consciousness, it is that energy that outlives the human body and takes with it your ability to think, to rationalize, to make decisions, to respond. And exactly how that works, we don't have all those answers yet. But there's got to be an energy source that's feeding that consciousness to keep it active. Because anybody who knows anything about physics knows that if an energy does not have a source to recharge, it'll eventually change form or burn out, one of the two. which is why in residual hauntings, they'll only last a certain period of time unless they have energy to recharge from.
Sure.
And residual will eventually change or burn out. Intelligent doesn't seem to be the case. I mean, we've gone to places that an incident has happened 80 to 100 years earlier, or we just came back from New York, did a 4-mansion tour. Some of these places were circa 1723, 1790. And some of those occurrences are still, and people are still there. So the intelligent haunting is unique in the fact that you can ask a question, you can get them to answer.
Yeah.
But it's the fact of consciousness surviving death, which really gives the fortitude to everything outside of residual, everything we call paranormal today. And whether it's truly paranormal, that's the word we use for it. We may find out 10, 15, 20 years from now that science catches up and says, you know what, this isn't paranormal. This is just normal. This is just what happens. And we're hopeful for that day, but it's not here yet.
Yeah.
So we still call it paranormal, but hundreds of years ago, they called the lunar eclipse.
Something that you can't explain, you know,
Right.
we call it paranormal.
Right.
So.
Hundreds of years ago, a lunar eclipse was paranormal because they didn't understand it. Today, that's not the case.
Right.
So hopefully science will be able to catch up, and they've made some great progress over the years, but it'll be a few more because there's really no money in it for them. And without money, you know, science usually takes a step back.
Right.
Yeah, so true. But, you know, we've encountered so many things in over the years and gotten answers that were just crazy. I can think of a home investigation we did where they were hearing voices, hearing footsteps, seeing shadow figures. And we set up recorders, laser grids, motion detectors, full spectrum cameras, trying to capture what was in their house.
Mm-hmm.
And this entity literally left a message on the recorder saying, your camera's not working.
Yeah.
And it was clear as a bell. Well, we get the stuff home and we start to review it. First thing I noticed, the camera, which was supposed to capture everything, didn't record. Then I went to the digital recorder and here's this voice, plain as day, saying,
your camera is not working.
Right. Told us right up front. When we played it for the homeowners, they recognized the voice and identified it as being an uncle that had passed away a year or a year and a half ago. And those are all just amazing things to us when a voice can be recognized. And EVPs can be tricky because sometimes they're whispers. Sometimes the quality is sometimes better, sometimes worse. But when you can get that kind of answer response and then play it for somebody and go, oh my gosh, that's so-and-so. That's when more legitimacy of what's happening around us on a regular basis becomes more factual and less theorized of what we think's going on.
Aragon has a question over here. You use the term surviving death. Can you please explain?
Well, yes, I can absolutely explain. When I say surviving death, I'm referring to surviving as your inner self. Your physical body, you are going to lose. That dies, that gets buried or burned, and goes back to the, dust to dust, ashes and dust, right? As the old saying goes. But your thoughts, your opinions, your ideas, your memories, that is what survives. And the reason I say surviving death is because Cherie has a famous question that she loves to ask. And that's,
I have a lot. Which one?
How did you die? And she doesn't say it as much as she used to, but the reason being is because I don't know how many times we've gotten the answer back from spirit saying, we're not dead. Because to them, they're not dead.
I remember they answered that question that they're confused, probably the spirit confused of, we're not dead, or I'm not dead.
Even on the 4-mansion tour, I think it was Kreischer, we had an EVP saying, they're telling us we're dead. Remember that?
Yeah.
Okay. So to them, yes, a change occurred, and I'm sure they're aware of that change. But to call it death, it's not. They do go on. It's not in this dimension. It's not in this 3D world, but they do exist. And if they didn't, we wouldn't be able to communicate. We wouldn't get answers from spirit boxes or EVPs. You know, there's not a piece of equipment out there that's specifically designed and approved to register anything in the paranormal. So as paranormal investigators, we're always looking for something new to try and use. And there's tons of different gadgets out there. But to me, there's not a gadget out there that can compare to getting a verbal response, whether that be through EVP or spirit box, that answers your questions, gives you an answer that satisfies the question you asked from somebody that is nowhere around. That to us is the ultimate in response and ultimate in evidence that life exists beyond the world that we live in.
It's just very fascinating when you capture EVPs, and you know, knowing that there's only, whether you do it yourself alone and then you hear some voices on your equipment, that fascinates me. I'm like, I keep asking you, where is that voice coming from? You know, up to now, I'm still like questioning. You know me, I keep asking questions. And
if you don't know by now, you might as well just stop, because after almost 12 years, if you don't,
it's just amazing. I'm like, okay, where is that voice coming from?
Well,
you know,
it's coming from somewhere else.
Yes.
And, you know, that brings up a good point, though, because one of the things that we've experienced, and I know anybody else who's investigated on a regular basis has probably had this happen as well. But you're asking a question with a digital recorder running, and you don't even get through half the question, and the answer shows up. Well, how did that happen? You didn't even physically speak the words in a full sentence to have asked the question. Well, because it doesn't have anything to do with the throat, the larynx, or the human voice you're using to put out that question.
Yeah.
It tells us that there is a mental energy, an electromagnetic, whatever those frequencies are, that the human brain is capable of emitting, no matter how strong or weak, that entities, spirits, can pick up on, which is how they can answer my question before I vocally even finish the sentence asking. And we've had that come through not only on EVPs, but on spirit boxes as well, where the answer shows up and I'm like, I didn't even finish asking the question. But again, that's fascinating. It goes back to the whole process of consciousness and electromagnetic frequency and waves.
That's so true.
Well, you know, that might be true. Maybe they can read our minds. But if you think about it in a scientific standpoint of it being energy waves, whether that be, I mean, the brain even puts out waves similar to radio waves, much less intense, but it's a frequency wave that carries information. And can they pick up on that and answer? Well, yeah.
Yeah, they can.
I believe they can. And then that takes us to a whole nother scenario. If you think about extraterrestrial and people who have had contact with extraterrestrials, they say, I could hear him speaking, but his mouth wasn't even moving. So they're not speaking with vocals. They're speaking through some mental energy. and being able to communicate back and forth. Now, if there are, and I say the word loosely, beings, not human beings, but beings out there that can do that. Other beings out there that can communicate mentally. There is absolutely no reason that once the human body is gone, that the spirit, the consciousness, would not also be able to do that. And that to me is absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, that's absolutely just incredible stuff. But the other thing that I was going to mention, and give me a second because it just slipped my mind as I was starting to say, I'm going to say it. Something to do with the extraterrestrial and consciousness. I don't know.
We'll go there.
Yeah, it'll pop back into my mind. But for anybody out there who, has watched that's one of them, Ghost Adventures, or any of the other shows that are out there, and wonder, can I do that? Is it safe to do that? One of the things that we're always asked is, what devices do you use to communicate? And have you ever used a Ouija board? Well, I have. And then the next question is it more dangerous than the other devices? Well, there's a two-part answer. The first answer is it doesn't matter what device you're communicating with, you've already began to open that door to get them interested to communicate back. And it doesn't matter whether that's a digital recorder, it doesn't matter whether it's dowsing rods, doesn't matter whether it's a Ouija board. You've opened that door saying, hey, I want to communicate. And that's probably step one to opening that side of the paranormal. And that's exactly what I was going to say, is that the human body, I'll go back to where I was, but the human body actually limits our ability. Everyone always says when dealing with paranormal, there's a thin veil between life and those on the other side. Well, that barrier is this thing right here. It is the human body. Our vision sees roughly 0.0035% of the light spectrum. Now that includes ultraviolet, infrared, and there are degrees that people don't even think about of light. But we only see a very tiny infraction of that spectrum. So that tells you there's a whole other array of light spectrums for things to exist in that our human eye can't see. Then you go to hearing. Our hearing, again, falls within a limited range. We start at 20 hertz and it dies going up at 20 megahertz.
Say that again.
Our hearing hears from 20 hertz
I'm
to
just
20
kidding.
megahertz.
You said hearing.
Oh, well, yours is gone. You've got from 20 to 25 and hertz, and everything else is gone.
Say what?
Never mind. But again, it's almost as if the human body was designed to limit our interaction. I mean, how distracting would it be if you could see all these people around, see what they're doing on a regular basis? It would literally be so distracting from this life here and now that I believe that was purposely done.
So you mean to say it's okay to use a Ouija board?
Well, now let's go back to that. The difference between using a digital recorder, a spirit, dowsing rods, is you have third-party instruments. Meaning if I'm asking a question and I'm asking a spirit to leave that response onto a digital recorder, that digital recorder is a third-party instrument that I don't have control of, unless, of course, I shake it or scream into it or, something ridiculous. But it runs on its own, and it has its own ability to pick up the response. The Ouija board is slightly different because the mechanism controlling it is you. Therefore, you when using a Ouija board, you put your own energy into the equation. I don't need to put my own energy in to run a digital recorder or a spirit box. Papa Joey says his drops off at 8,000 hertz. Good to know. Good to know. But that's the difference, is that you're using your own body energy to let them take control of, to slide your fingers or move the planchette around. And a lot of people say, well, I've seen them move on their own. Yeah, that's possible. Yeah. But it's easier for them to use your energy to move it than it is to move it on its own. But that's the difference, is that you are using your own self as the tool rather than a third party tool. So there is a slightly higher risk. Wow. Is it to the degree that Hollywood portrays? Probably not. But have bad things happened? Yeah, they have. But they've happened across the paranormal field all over the boards. So to pinpoint one particular device as being the demonic board it helps if you know what you're doing. It helps if you come across something negative, what to do. Yeah, absolutely. The Ouija board draws energy from you as the person using it and whoever else you're using it with. And the entities use you as their medium to affect the board. So that doesn't happen with recorders and spirit boxes. Those things run on their own. They're independent, which is the whole concept of ITC, or instrumental trans communication. You're using a third-party device to get your answers. It's not through you as the investigator. And doing EVPs is the same thing. It is literally a form of ITC, because the digital recorder is the third-party device that captures your messages. So when we started, diving into all this, and then I started learning electronics to be able to make my own boxes and get responses, we've had some of the most incredible responses. And I've even asked the question, who am I speaking to? Are you spirits? Are you entities? Are you multidimensional creatures? Are you extraterrestrial creatures? And we've had responses from both spirit, multidimensional, but you never know who you're speaking to. And that does add some danger to it as well. But let's face it, if they were really here to hurt us, now there are some, and I'm not even going to get into demonic because I don't even like that word. We've run into negative entities for sure. Would I call them demonic? Probably not. Not sure where that line is. And the fact that I'm not sure if I'd classify them as that tells me if something is out there that is truly demonic, we haven't hit it yet. Yeah. Because we know it. Luckily. Right. Yeah, we'd know it if we did.
Right.
All right. I see more questions popping up. Manifest something that can be not good that makes sense. I think you have the right mood to use the Ouija board. No, mood absolutely has a huge effect. And that mood that you're in at the time expands even past just using a Ouija board. It affects any investigation you do, any haunted place you're in. Spirits, I believe, have the ability, and again, when I say stuff like this, these are theories based off of what we've experienced, what we've captured, what we've experienced. But I believe everyone gives off a certain sense of energy. And if your mood is changed, if you're angry, if you're upset, if you're depressed.
Attitude, moods and attitude.
All of it. All of it affects that energy you're giving off. And we've also noticed through having so many friends within the paranormal, which is absolutely great. That's how we learn. None of us are going to figure this out on our own, only through interacting with each other, sharing evidence, locations.
And there's no expert.
And there is no expert. Right. None. There never will be. By the time you're an expert, you're on the other side and aren't here anymore. But the fact is that we've seen different personalities affect how and what they capture. And we know someone, I'm not going to mention names or anything, but he does have more of a negative, a little bit darker of a personality. And when he goes and investigates, he gets the negative responses. He gets the darker stuff. He gets the...
Do I know this person?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
And, when doing spirit box, he gets words like devil, demon, just the worst stuff you'd want to hear. And so I think personality and attitude and what your energy level is like has a direct effect on what you're going to attract. And it's the same thing for people. If you have a positive, happy attitude, you're going to probably attract positive, happy people, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. So that makes a huge difference in not only what you attract, but how they answer. Although we're usually pretty upbeat, pretty positive, pretty happy-go-lucky. And we've gotten some very negative things, which just did not like us being there or interfering.
Well, I think our attitude at that time when we get that is we're arguing.
You got to be more specific. That was more than once.
When we did the what you call this in the Globe? What hotel is that?
Hotel in Globe or the jail?
No, the hotel.
In Globe?
Gadsden? Remember?
No, that's not Globe. That's
I'm sorry.
That's south, way south.
Okay, but anyway, in that hotel, Gadsden, we argued at the time, and I kid you not, everything in my energy, I'm like, I feel like I want to attack you and strangle you.
Yeah, I absolutely do remember that. And there was a very negative stuff in that.
Scary.
I actually had to pull her out for a couple of hours. We had to leave the building. We spent 3 days in there and had to leave the building just because it was affecting both of us. We were arguing more. And one night, even to the point of it getting a little aggressive. So I said, okay, that's it. We're leaving the hotel for a while. And that did help. Okay, so Aragon asks, when you detect voices, have you ever had one spirit voice interfere or drown out another voice? Absolutely. Yes. There are more dominant spirits, and there are also ones that can be controlling. We've had women's voice begin to talk, and then a male voice come in, stop, don't talk, and literally shut them down. Mm-hmm. We've had ones that didn't even say anything, but you could hear in the EVP response that something or someone had shown up and they just quit talking, or we heard them say, enough, stop talking. So yes, to answer that question, absolutely we've had. Mm-hmm. But the other thing to know about when doing EVPs is that not everything you catch is directed at you. We've had responses captured where they're literally talking to each other and we're picking up portions of conversation. And that took a while to figure out because, we'd play them back and I'd say to Cherie, what the heck are they talking about? I didn't do anything like that. Or is this going to happen to me? Mm-hmm. And then we realized that it is literally possible. And this is when we started bringing in parabolic mics, which if you've never used a parabolic mic to capture EVPs,
I love parabolic mics.
Do it, because some of the stuff we've captured is incredible. Yeah. We had, when we ran the Phelps Dodge Hospital, we have full conversations between doctors in the old doctor's lounge, not happy ones. They're screaming at each other, but and we knew there was no one in the entire building. And to capture that and to be able to hear that, knowing there was no one in there, and even we had left and let it run on its own. Yeah. That's an incredible capture. And when we've heard not only them talk, we've heard stuff being shuffled around, boxes moving. Yeah. And of course, that we're talking today from the audio side, but we've captured this stuff on video as well. We have a 3D shadow figure that just, when I first saw it, just freaked out. I mean, this thing walks out into the hallway, which is on the second floor. So nobody could have been outside the windows the light was coming for unless they were 15 feet tall. They wouldn't have cast a shadow into the second floor. This thing walks into the hall, walks out of the light and walks into the darkest part of the hallway, does a 360. I mean, this thing is three-dimensional. It's insane.
Yes.
Walks back, goes back into the room that it came from.
Yeah, 11 years or almost 12 years. That was the first time that we had.
First time we caught it on video.
We caught it on video.
We had seen them for brief seconds. We had captured them on photos, but
I'm telling you, it's not, easy to capture those kind of things. Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's not pedestrian level captures. It's something that is very rare and very hard to capture. But we still have that clip, and that's incredible. But anyway, back to audio and EVPs and consciousness. One would not exist without the other. And I was saying that when you ask a question, your voice is not being amplified. It's not being turned into any other signal outside of the literal physical sound waves that radiate from your voice. Which brings us to the other aspect of EVPs, is that you can have 3 recorders laying out, all recording. When I ask a question, my voice shows up, my question shows up on all 3 recorders when they're running, because that's the physics of a sound wave, that it's going to travel across all 3 recorders. But the answer, the EVP answer, will not necessarily show up on all 3 recorders. It might be on 2, it might be on 1. And that is the fascinating thing about EVPs, is that you can ask a question and only have it show up on 1 recorder. That means not only are they affecting the recorder directly, but they're doing it in a way with some type of electromagnetic energy or radio wave that's leaving it directly on the machine. If it was the physics of vocal sound traveling through the room, every one of those recorders would have that same response. And we know from time and time again that's not the case, and that it can literally show up on just one. And it's not a silent EVP, it's loud. So if it was an actual sound wave transmitting through the room, it would be on all of them. But that doesn't happen. Yeah. So again, it shows you that what we consider to be the science of the 3D realm we live in does not apply to the paranormal, or those things would not happen.
Is there any other equipment or gadget for other people who wants to do investigation? What else they can use?
Well, depending on what stage you're at in investigating, the 3 simplest items to start with, if you've never gone before and you want to do this, you're going to want a camera, and probably a video camera, because today's video cameras will shoot at least in 1080, if not 2K or 4K or even 6 or 8 today. You'll want night vision on that camera, because a lot of times you are in the dark, and people say, well, why do you have to go in the dark? Well, you really don't have to. The reason we do it at night is because the environment is calmer. People are sleeping. There are less distractions, less noises out in the environment.
There's no contamination on the EVPs.
Right. There's no contamination. But does that activity still occur in the daylight hours? You bet it does. Absolutely.
Oh, yes.
Absolutely.
Yep.
We've caught some of our best captures in the middle of the day, the middle of the afternoon. It doesn't have to be midnight, 1 a.m. They're there. Anytime. Right. The second piece of equipment is a digital recorder. One that preferably records in WAV format. MP3 is what's called a loss format, because it's excuse me, it's a condensed file. And when it condenses to keep the file size shorter, some of that data gets lost. So if you can record in WAV format, you'll have a much clearer and refined audio. And I just about was to answer that question, and it went away. So it's right there. Everyone has their own way of getting.
Oh, there you go. Thanks, Keith.
Giving evidence and try to prove what they are looking for. There is not just one way of doing it. It bothers me when some people. You're absolutely right. There isn't one way. Matter of fact, when we first started, the one criticism we always got when we were doing EVP sessions was, don't talk amongst ourselves, meaning back and forth to Cherie and I, don't move, sit still, don't say a word. Well, we realized that when Cherie and I would talk to each other,
the spirits butt in.
They would butt in and leave responses to what we were talking about.
Yeah.
And other times, the environmental noise of us walking down steps or something, they would use that environmental noise to project what they were saying.
Right.
So I agree with that statement completely. There is not a right or wrong answer to how you investigate. Nobody has the answers. And only through trying, through scientifically testing, are we going to find out what works and what doesn't.
Yeah.
But yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Absolutely agree with that.
That's a good one.
Yeah. So let's see. What else?
What else we can talk about? What about our 4-mansion tour? You want to say that?
So last month we did 4 mansions in the tri-state area. We did Kingsland Manor, Kreischer Mansion, Selma Mansion, and White Hill Mansion in 4 days. We did not sleep at all.
That is not a good idea to do 4
in a row. We did not sleep. The earliest we got to bed was like 5:30 in the morning. The latest we got to bed was about 7:30, 7:45 in the morning. And then we'd sleep for 2 or 3 hours and then get up and go to the next one, set everything up. 4 of those in a row. It was an absolutely amazing experience, but it was murder at the same time because we were exhausted.
Because the following day, if you do investigation, you don't have that energy anymore.
It dropped each place.
Right.
It was crazy though. We got some really good stuff. If you haven't seen them, 2 of them are out already. We put out Kingsland, we put out Kreischer. We're finishing Selma as we speak. We're just waiting for a little feedback. And then we've got White Hill yet to release. But if you do get a chance, take a look. You can find us on entityvoices.com. You can find us on Facebook under Entity Voices or under Tony Rathman. You can find us on YouTube. Or did I say that already?
No, not yet.
No. You can find us on YouTube under Entity Voices Paranormal Investigation. And Cherie and I are 2 of 6 members of the team. We used to be partially located in the Phoenix area. Chris and Audra went over to North Carolina, and Ron and Lourdes are in New Jersey. But we handle cases across the U.S., and if we're not in an area that we can be of help, we've got contacts. We just sent one over to some Southern California people for a call I had yesterday. Do you think it's the compression that is done digitally in the way that brings those sounds into our hearing range that doesn't take place naturally in the environment? You know, that's a great point. And that compression plays a huge role in it. So yes, I believe that definitely has an effect. The compression probably is outside of our hearing range. But I don't think the mic on a digital recorder, one of the tests I want to do is pull a mic off a digital recorder so it has no mic and see if I can still get EVPs. Now, I'm not talking about a diode RAID mic from because I've tried those, they don't work. But I'd like to actually physically pull the mic because I don't believe a spirit even uses the mic. They have no vocals, they have no throat, there is no actual sound wave. So I'm going to take one of our old recorders, I'm going to pull the mic from it and see if I can still get responses. But excellent question. Excellent question.
That's Papa Joey.
So looks like we've got maybe 6 minutes left. I didn't know if...
also mention about our KGRA. Sure.
Oh, yes. And last but not least, if you ever want to see, we do a show on KGRA radio network called Entity Voices Paranormal Evidence, and we review some of the most amazing evidence captured by investigators all across the country. So Monday night, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific.
Yeah, great show. Go check it out for sure. You guys, just you guys alone, just get some of the most incredible evidence that I've personally ever seen. So, and we've had the pleasure of having you and all your teammates on our shows, and you guys are just, you're legit. You're it. You're what every paranormal team, in my opinion, should kind of model after, because
thank you.
What you guys go through in reviewing your evidence, you don't put crap out there. Everything you guys put out there is just, in my opinion, phenomenal. And
thank you so much. Tony works hard.
We put a lot of time in it, because, you know, we almost put something out a couple of weeks ago that we found out was not legit. Not by anybody's fault. It was a mistake, and it turned out to be something logical. But it only takes one. It only takes one mistake to put out something that isn't legit or identifiable as being paranormal or not normal. And you put out one and it's the wrong one, your reputation has gone in the toilet. You want to avoid that.
Yeah, very easily.
Yeah.
Well, cool, guys. Thank you so much for jumping on. I appreciate it. And I think everybody really, really enjoyed this segment. I had a comment, I love the blue. I love the blue ambience you guys have going. That looks really cool.
Thank you. Except for a red cup. She needs to lower that. There you go.
It kind of shines blue too a little bit, though. It's cool, guys. We love you guys, and we appreciate everything you do, and look forward to working with you more in the future. That's for sure.
Absolutely.
Say hi to Lindsay.
Yeah, say hi to Lindsay, and we look forward to that as well. So thank you very much.
Oh, thank you, guys. We appreciate it, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, sounds great.
All right. Thanks, guys. Appreciate it.
Bye.
All right, bye. All right, so yeah, go check them out. Entity Voices Paranormal, if you get a chance. Their evidence is just bar none, just top. It's just top notch. It really is, and I'm not just saying that because we've worked with them, but it's just, you see a lot of stuff out there, and like they said, a lot of stuff looks kind of pushed and rushed, and you have to question it. But there's if you go back and watch some of our shows on The Truth About Beer, I think you'll be kind of blown away by the evidence they present, and go watch their shows, because their shows are just phenomenal. And their Monday night show, we've tuned into them several times. It's a lot of fun. You get to meet different investigators from all over the country, and it's just a real neat time. So anyway, that's going to do it for this segment. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Our next segment up is George and Kara, but they're having issues. They're out at the Nevada State Prison. They don't have any reception right now, so it may present an issue for us. We're going to try. We're going to give them a chance, but if not, Lindsay and I will come back on, and we will close out the day for you guys. Don't forget, we have a full day coming up tomorrow. More paranormal investigators. We've got some really cool topics tomorrow, plus Papa Joey, myself, and Jack from The Truth About Beer, and we'll be hosting tomorrow, so we'll have a lot of cool stuff going on there as well. Don't forget, let us know. I'm going to ask a question again tomorrow. Let us know something about our zombies in the back there that you see that's interesting. So we'll keep that going. If you haven't subscribed to our channels, please do so. We can always use the subscriptions, and we need more followers. So we got The Truth About Beer and Buy Us the Books, Paranormal Partners, Highway to Your Health, and Coffee Table Chronicles. Anyway, thank you guys. We'll be up next with our next segment. We're going to try to contact George and Kara to see how they're doing out there. So we'll see what happens. We'll see you in a minute.